I was to do a clinic at the IAJE on free music. This alone I found amusing. I arrived early, so I sat down and just played piano. And I was surprised to hear myself playing these old singer crooner type songs. And I thought, how strange for a free music clinic to be playing these songs. And then I realized that's just the kind of thing that would appeal to my creative nature, because the message would be not about free music as a style, but free music as a state of mind. It was a fun clinic. We might as well do an unscheduled concert until 5 o'clock. Why not? This is about free jazz anyway, so unscheduled is where it's at. Actually, we're scheduled for a free jazz clinic at 5 o'clock. Precisely at 5 o'clock. A free jazz clinic. Okay? Everybody be there precisely at 5 o'clock. Because I'm going to define precisely for you free jazz. I'm going to put it in a little box for you. And you'll never have to think about it again. That lovely. Now, how much time do we have? Because I left I left my watch in the room. I said, oh, I forgot my watch. I went back and immediately my card didn't work. That ever happened to you? That's what I hate about these electronic cards. Give me metal. Give me a key, something I can hold on to. 10 of 5. Oh, okay, so we have 10 more minutes for the concert, for the unscheduled concert. And now a little more free jazz.
3-minute waltz, but with age, it takes 3 minutes now. Perfect.
Thank you. Well, we got the playing out of the way, and we were able to get to the important thing about jazz now, talking. This is supposed to be a clinic on free jazz, but scheduling yourself to do a clinic on free jazz is a very dangerous thing to do. Because if you're really going to do a clinic on free jazz, then you don't actually have any idea what the clinic's going to be if you're really going to do it on free jazz. And I had a whole idea. I do have a CD out with Mr. Abersol. It's Play Along, and I'm proud of it because it's... Jamie asked me, we'd like to do a play along. He said, only if I could do a free music play along. That is to say, you put it on, you play whatever you want with it. And it's out. It's called Free Play, and there's a little booklet in there on the benefits of playing free jazz, which I can cover briefly. It is developing a relationship with the instrument, developing a relationship with time, with screaming, with whispering, with playing high, playing low, touching the instrument in a variety of ways without the tyranny of the right note, without the tyranny of form. That's why, do you ever notice your most creative note is the last note of the piece? You guys get to the end and then you hit that fermata, and nobody wants to end it. Like one guy goes, but then you go like, you can't end because that is the first moment you've been creative in the whole piece. Is the fermata, the last chord. And you're able to let go, and suddenly everything feels creative. And then you say, oh, that was a great piece. Well, it wasn't until the last chord. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. If you can make time feel like free music, in other words, if your time could feel as effortless as rubato, then as you're playing time, you would have the same delicious feeling. Or if changes were not a prison, but a liberating force, so the implication is there that you've mastered being able to play on changes, then changes would be what set you free. But free music means, the real, so I could give a brief history of free music, which I won't do. But what is free music? In my book, I actually mentioned this. There's a joke about trying to play free music correctly. I mean, that's just something wrong with that statement, Free music, there's only one real freedom, and that is the freedom from having to sound good. I mean, really, you could go and meditate with the Dalai Lama, and you can learn incantations and visualizations, and you could get very nice crystals, and eat whole foods, health foods, free-range chicken, instead of, that horrible stuff they serve at McDonald's. You could do all that stuff, and you're still not going to be free, unless you're free of needing to sound good. Like there's no security, for example, an analogy is there's no security there's no financial freedom in being rich. Because if you're not rich, then you're always afraid you're not going to get rich. But if you get rich, then you're afraid you're going to lose it. The only real freedom is in not needing it. So the only real freedom in music, ironically, is not needing to be good at it. Then you can play freely. So the person that plays free music, or even plays anything and tries to play it well, they're not free. And that is an epidemic probably in this music right now, which is why there's so little profound music. But I don't really want to dwell on that aspect of it today, because lately I've been thinking about something else, Free jazz. I've been dwelling on the word free, freedom. What does that mean? Ultimately, it means freedom to sound bad. Now, why would that be such a freeing experience? Because if you could love yourself for sounding bad, then you'd be free. That's the only reason it's such a drama about sounding bad or sounding good, is this tie-in between the amount of self-love that we might give ourselves and how good we play. I mean, do you feel great on a day that you play terrible?
But there's other aspects of, of freedom. Lately, I really was, I guess, not really consciously preparing for the clinic, but preparing for the clinic, thinking about freedom, like freedom to think outside the box, for example. When I first came to jazz, and I came to jazz late. I wasn't interested in jazz until I was about 18, 19 years old. And I saw these wonderfully free beings playing. Ornette Coleman, John Coltrane was dead at that point, but you know, the Miles Davis acoustic quintet had just sort of stopped, and the beginning of that wonderfully mysterious electronic stuff that they started to do was happening. Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, these people were not just great musicians, they were great philosophers. Or they were living philosophers, like yogis in a way. I mean, they were not trying to play jazz, they were finding that filament of life, that thing that makes it go in themselves, and then writing odes to that, which is very much what a yogi does. And so when I came to jazz, I thought that, yeah, I want to think outside the box, so I'll play jazz. That was the period that I happened to come in. And what I think I've noticed is that now, to think outside the box, you have to sort of think outside of jazz. You know, because jazz has sort of become the box. There's such a notion of what's right and wrong that students are bound by it by their teachers. Teachers are bound by it by their previous teachers. The media is bound by it because of convention. The conventional wisdom is so stifling at this point that I think free jazz means coming out of the box and really finding the notes that you passionately need. You know, getting back to that. Getting back to what made jazz great. Was great beings played it. Actually, that's what made jazz great. You know, jazz or music is not the message, and it's not even the messenger. It's the language that the messenger uses to communicate the word from the creator, whatever you think that is. The creator gives hints to the beauty inside and outside. And one of the strongest hints he, she, it gives is through music. So the player trains himself so that wherever the master wants to play, the player is ready to go there. And that's the purpose of training. Not to sound better than one's friends or to win first prize somewhere in a competition, but so that if the master wants to move over here, you're ready. You know, like for example, many of you may feel very, very free in 4/4 time, and maybe you're very spiritual people too. So while you're playing 4/4 time, you can actually chant a mantra, or recite the rosary, or think of your guru, or think of Charlie Parker, or think of whatever. And 4/4 plays itself. That's free. But then the piece goes into 5/4, and then whoops, God is dead. He dead. God is dead. Everybody knows there is no God in 5/4, right? Don't we all know that? Try to think about your creator and play 5 at the same time. Now, if you've mastered 5, then it's free again. So mastery is necessary for jazz or music to be free in form. However, you can experience that freedom on the very first day you ever play. If you're willing to love the sound that you make from the very first day, you're free. The reason we train ourselves is the same reason martial arts people train themselves, or the same reason video game players need to go up to the higher levels. You know, like if you do this for a couple of years, and I love that sound. But if that's all I could do, I would become bored. So now I want to be able to do this in a different key. You know? Or be able to play this in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. See how easily I do that? So the reason we train is because we would be bored with what we play if we didn't. And without raising your hands, everybody silently take note how many people are bored with what they play. You don't have to raise your hands, unless you want to. Yes, by God, I'm bored with what I play. So we train ourselves, just like a video guy plays video games. The first level, he finally gets through the first level. It's so exhilarating. Gets to the second level and craps out immediately. But after a while, he learns the second level, and each level is like, oh, no big thing, because he's trying to get to the next level. That is why we train, for the stimulation of pouring freedom into increasingly complex forms. And that exists in every area of life. Martial arts is a very good one. Once someone masters one martial art, they go on and start mastering others. Why don't they just, make their money with the one that they mastered? Why do they go on? For the thrill of re-experiencing freedom in a new form. And jazz expanded throughout its entire history for that very reason. The thrill of being able to stretch on an existing form or play on a new form. So freedom can really be defined as having mastered the forms, keys, harmonies that you're about to play. Or freedom can be defined as simply loving the sound you make this day. So this freedom is available. And free jazz, in a way, just to touch the history a little bit, in a sense was a reaction to the high level of sophistication that the music had reached. And some of these guys heard the illusions that were coming out of it. You see, when you're really on top of the music, you can actually create illusions. Like playing sixes over the 4/4, right? Or fives or sixes, or doing a certain polyrhythm that, like spokes in the wheel, it starts to create an illusion, an effect. And these guys heard this stuff. For example, they heard maybe the Miles Davis Quintet play a highly complex tune, and they couldn't follow the changes at all. But they wanted to sound like that, so maybe they decided, you know what, let's play time, no changes. And then they could sort of make the same sounds. And maybe they could agree on the resolutions. A lot of free music came out of the instant desire to sound, to be able to do marvelous things in time or in harmony without necessarily having mastered the form. But then, of course, it took a life of its own. So you can do that now. You can experience freedom without any form, or you can master form to create freedom. But what other kind of freedoms there are? Like I said, when I came into jazz, it felt to me like everybody was thinking outside the box. Here was society, and then these jazz musicians, they were talking about the stars and the moon and the cosmos and and all this amazing stuff. And I said, yeah, that's where I want to go. And then jazz became sort of conscious of itself, became an institution, which is something that things are always going to do, You get the word, and then the longer the word is out there, the more it becomes a manual of words. And, the first people that are explaining it to us, they mean well enough. They heard the word, and they said, did you hear the word? Did you hear what he said? Well, I'll tell you what I heard, and they start to explain it with excitement. And it's still okay, And then next people say, did you hear what he said? And then someone says, we should establish some techniques of getting to that thing that he said, and then you're studying techniques in order to get back to, and on and on and on. It's sort of like when you say something to someone and you whisper it around the room and you get to the other side and it doesn't resemble the original idea. Jazz has gone through that cycle. And also for survival in a commercial monolithic society like ours, it has to come up with some banners, some themes, America's only art form, or America's indigenous art form, which I agree with, But when you build a temple to the music, you lose the deity that dwelled there. It's not the music, it's the musician. And it's not really even the musician, it's the being who became a musician. Just the other night, a drummer called me, and he was just telling me how he was doing, and he said, "Yeah, man, and I've been playing a lot, and I've been checking out yoga and this and that, and really doing some spiritual practices, and I'm just hoping to get it into my playing." What really shocks me is how often I meet people who have a great commitment to some kind of program for their lives, either expanding their mind or their bodies or their souls, and then they play and they get into the box as if they had had no references to something wider than that. They think music is something different. No matter what you've experienced out there in the Himalayas, now it's time to get in the box and play correctly. And it's amazing that many people just don't make the simple transfer. Whatever state of mind you're creating through whatever discipline, Tai Chi, yoga, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, the Kabbalah, whatever it is, or, you know, sugar, whatever it is you like, hookers, whatever generates passion in you, like Joe Henderson said, inner urge. That's one of the most profound titles in jazz, inner urge. Whatever is truly your inner urge, you develop that. You go into it. You become a mad lover of it, right? And then you're going to come out of that to play Doxy? No. You should play Doxy and keep your mind swimming in the passion that it was swimming in. So I said to the guy, he said, "I don't know how to connect the spirituality with being a jazz musician." And I said, "It's easy. Don't be a jazz musician. If you're studying yoga, be a yogi who plays music. Stay there, and play what is ever willing to come out from there." It's so simple. And then you think of John Coltrane, Wayne Shorter, Monk, Duke Ellington, and suddenly you understand in a much deeper way how the history of jazz became history, because these people were doing that. And what we do is we lose that and we focus on the music. If you want to be free, play like Cecil Taylor. If you want to be hard to figure out, play like Monk. You know, the people that play like Monk, they never remind me of Monk. Never. It just sounds like an intellectual exercise. I don't care who it is. And as I wrote in my book, I don't want to play like Monk. I want to feel like Monk about my playing. That whatever note I play, by accident or by design, is the finest and most beautiful note that I've ever heard. I believe that Monk had at least some kind of acceptance. There was nothing in his mind that would rush to catch what he was doing and say, "No good." I think he enjoyed that secret knowledge he had, that if his hand went over here, that he should absolutely own that without question. And then all the people who were not sure of themselves would go, "Wait a minute, yesterday that was the wrong note. Now I have to reconsider. That was the greatest note I've ever heard in my life." And that's how music history evolved. I had mentioned in my book the wrong note of the 14th century, for which you might be burned at the stake, became the right note of the 15th century, upon which you could not get a gig without playing. So was there ever any wrong notes? To me, this is really what free music is about. And I bristle at the notion of free music, because then that defines, that acknowledges that there is the other, music that is not free. There is no such thing. There are people who are not free, either because the forms they choose to play are too complex and they don't love themselves enough to pick the forms that they can play on, or because they've been so programmed to think that there's a right way to do this and there's a right person that does this, and they're not that person, and this is not the way. You know, that is sort of the disease of education. You have to really watch out for that. The disease of education is you've been turned on to so many things to study that have passed by your eyes without ever learning, because next week you're learning something else, right? That you get into this perpetual state of looking when you play. You're looking for that altered scale they showed you last week. You're looking for those chords. You're looking for those Richie Byrack voicings. You're looking for, those diminished voicings of Chick Corea. You're looking for all this sophisticated stuff that was laid on you. And whatever's right in front of you, whatever comes out easily, if it comes out easily, simultaneously a little voice goes off in your head, says, must be the wrong stuff. Came to me too easily. It was too easy. Beware of that. It's a complete perversion of your rights. Education is essential. You're not going to speak a language without education. But education is not the broth, it's the spice. You put a little, too much spice, as in too much spice ruins the broth. If you feel overeducated, take a break. And go out like, what was that guy in the movie? What was that movie? Women in Love. What was his name? Oh, English actor. The other one, Bates. Runs out naked and he starts rubbing all these plants all over himself. The English. He runs outfield naked and running over all these plants all over himself because it's all wet and he wants to feel the wet. He just wants to feel something, Go out and do that and come back and then you can study a little bit. But don't let education grow over you like vines, like what's that stuff on the side? No, what's that stuff on the side of the walls? Hey, Anton. Ivy. Don't let it grow over you like ivy so that you can't even see your heart anymore. Education, a little education, sprinkle it in. Get to know the stuff you decide to study. Bring it back into the heart, back into that comfort zone. Find out how it comes out through you, and then go back for a little more. That's where I really think we have our problems as an educated society. Free music, thinking out of the box. I find so many people involved with jazz today in the box. Whether it's magazine or record companies. I mean, not just because they're not writing about me and signing me. Really, not just because of that. That's the major reason. But not the only reason. I mean, I talk to them and I can't believe how confined they're. Oh, I'll give you a good example. I played the JVC Festival this last summer, and it was a piano thing, 12 piano players. God, I could never have sat in there and listened to 12 piano. I don't know about you guys. I cannot listen to 12 piano players consecutively. I sat in my car parked outside because it was the night Roger Clemens was going for his 300th win, actually, which he didn't get, but he had a no-hitter going into the 7th inning. And then I kept running in. Am I on yet? Anyway, I listened. Here and there I listened, and I heard really good piano pedagogy. I heard expert playing on this and on that, but I always could tell what the piano player was thinking about, what he was trying to prove, he or she. What was their agenda? What part of the history were they validating themselves by regurgitating? So I came out and I played Blue and Green. And I started by allowing myself to become drunk with the sound of the piano. And immediately the tenor of the room changed. The whole atmosphere changed. Anybody who was there would tell you that. But that's not even the point. We had a beautiful Blue and Green where we passed all that and we went into a certain space together. But I read a review, and the guy really liked what I did, and he said, in Kenny Werner's tribute to Bill Evans. See, I wasn't paying tribute to Bill Evans. I was playing Blue and Green. But that's the way everybody thinks now. You couldn't possibly be doing something of value unless you're paying tribute to some of our heroes who are deserving of our hero worship. But we are not honoring them if we do not honor the heroes in ourselves right now, what we're doing right now. It didn't all happen already. There's more. And there are people coming along with the audacity to go for more. They love and respect the heroes, but they are not going to be bound and oppressed by the heroes. That is not free music, even if your hero is Cecil Taylor. See, there you go. Your hero could be Cecil Taylor, and you could be playing out of Cecil Taylor consciousness which we call CCC. And you're not free. Because if you really want to honor Cecil Taylor, you're going to get past the hurricane. I'll give you another profound title in this music. Inner Urge and the Eye of the Hurricane. Okay? See, those are the kind of philosophers that used to make this music. I'm sorry, they're around. Well, Herbie Hancock's around. But what meaning there? Are you caught up in the turbulence? Or do you go into the eye, where all these concepts of what the institution of art is are swirling like chairs flying and cows and trucks? Or are you in the eye where it's all just, and you're in a very quiet place where the only thing you hear is your own heart and your own mind and your own sense of humor and your own genitals and your own soul? And then you give that sound by honoring the next note you play without condition, without restraint. You deserve that. It is for you. That's the gift that everybody in this room, and even in the other rooms, may partake of. So you should just know that, Free music is being free to dive into the intoxication of your own sound. Somebody once really pressed me at a clinic. How do you get that beautiful sound? What is your technique? And I said, well, there's no technique. As soon as I hear the sound of the piano coming from my hands, I instantly rush to greet it with great relish, with great joy. Oh, thank you, Swami Pianananda. Thank you for making that sound. And thank you for my part in it. And it's important that you don't judge that sound. Otherwise, you'll miss the train. The thing is to rush to it with unconditional revel, unconditional delicious anticipation, and unconditional enjoyment. You've got to, or else you'll miss it. By the time you decide, oh yeah, well, Kenny Werner said I should like it, whoop, it's gone. It's gone. It's too late. You will be now beating yourself over the head with a new stick. It's a new age stick. I should love myself more. I should love myself more. Instead of saying I should swing harder, instead of saying I should make the changes better, instead of saying my blues should be more sophisticated, or instead of saying I should be more authentic, instead of using those bats, you have a new bat. It's one of those bats that people hit each other with for therapy. What are those called? They don't hurt. There's like styrofoam or something. Boom. I must love myself. I must love myself. It doesn't work. I mean, you can't apply a technique here. It's got to be real. I would offer you an exercise, not just dime store philosophy here. I would offer you an exercise. Everybody, for a week, go back to your instruments, and every time you touch it, remind yourself beforehand that as soon as you hear something, you're going to love it, you're going to cherish it, you're going to hoard it. Like a person who's been wandering in the desert for 2 weeks and hasn't had a glass of water, and the sun's been beating down on them. And suddenly you show them a cool, tall glass of ice water. And how does that feel as it touches the tongue or goes down the throat? Make a pact for yourself for a week that every time, as soon as you make your first sound, before you make it, you're going to bogart that sound before you even know. As soon as it comes out, you're going to snort it, sniff it, shoot it, drink it, ingest it, digest it, chew on it. As soon as you hear it, and do that for 1 week, and call me in the morning. No, really. Try it. Take the plunge. Now, here's where the mind plays a funny thing, because in a day or two, you might have made it a whole other thing. So try to remember what the assignment is. Before you play the instrument, you're going to imagine that you've been thirsty for 2 weeks in the desert, and your sound of your instrument, be it your voice, be it the instrument, is a cool, ice-cold glass of water. Isn't everybody getting thirsty? See the water, see the sunshine refracting through the water and see the sweat on the outside of the glass and how you'd like to lick the glass. And that would even be a great start. And now hold that image and apply it as soon as you hear the sound of your instrument, and do that for 1 week. It's there. It's available. Free jazz is available to everybody. And the part that I deal with is that freedom to think outside the box. First I did it timidly. I thought, well, wow, everybody's going this way. Maybe I'm just, you know, a relic from a bygone era or something. But you know what? If I don't now, and I'm sure that this is true of all my heroes, if I don't follow that, if I don't go into the eye of the hurricane, if I don't blindly follow the inner urge, I've lost my compass. Because to try to play acceptable music to the art world is just not important. It's just not important in this world. And if you look at this world and what's going on here, you know, I'm just not going to get caught up in something so damn small, you know, as what is jazz. So, but maybe I can make a difference if every time I touch the piano that I have this unconditional addiction to the sound of it.